For this morning, the way of life. Let us pray. O Lord, your faithfulness to us and to this world causes our hearts to tremble. Come now, O God, speak your word to us and help us hear. Heavenly Father, grace my lips and anoint our ears. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Further on in the Gospel of Matthew, it says, "He who loves father and mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake shall find it." Back in 1976, when Jimmy Carter was running for president, he became famous for his teeth. The cartoon artists and the media made fun of his extra large white teeth that he had. Wherever he went, there was remarks about his smiling teeth. Does life always give you and I something to smile about? As Christians, are not we supposed to always have a smile on our face? But aren't there times in life when a frown is more appropriate? Times when we are upset, angry, and not sure what's going to happen? In our gospel reading for this morning, we see Jesus is on the side where he seldom is. He's usually on the side of the Prince of Peace, being a distributor just of peace. He comes this morning in our gospel reading, not holding an olive branch, the symbol of peace, but he brings a sword, which means confrontation. Wherever Jesus goes, he stirs up controversy. He turns values upside down. He challenges sinful ways. They are the cost and the challenge of discipleship. How do we account for this in our life? Is it a result of Jesus taking the crossroad of life? If you and I are to follow him on his road, you and I can expect the same things that he had. This leads us to the cost of discipleship. Can we afford to be a true Christian? Do we want to pay the price of walking on the crossroad of life? In our readings this morning, those that Gloria had for us and the gospel reading, Jesus talks about following him in the difficulties of life. What is the road? And what does it take to travel on the road with Christ for life? I believe one of it is a disciple. To being a disciple of discipline. The crossroad of life is the road of being disciplined. In our text, Jesus said, "He who loves father and mother more than me is not worthy of me." This is called self-discipline by putting Christ first in our life. The matter of discipline is not a very popular subject in this world we live in, this luxury-loving America. When I went to seminary back a few years ago at Kansas City, usually the second or third day we always went downtown to Lenny's bookstore. And it was located next to one of the biggest department stores in Kansas City, called Gimbel's. Repeatedly, Gimbel's had tried, once a year at least, to buy up that little bookstore. But he would never sell. And the time we were there, he told us the story about how Gimbel's had been over just a couple of weeks before we were there and said to him, "Just think of the big price I'm offering you. You could be on Easy Street." But Larry said, "I don't want to be on Easy Street. I want to be right here on 9th Street." That's kind of rare, isn't it, in life when we could be on Easy Street? Our present society is characterized by the lack of discipline because we always, not always, but most of the time would like to live on Easy Street. A Christian is one who practices the discipline of putting priorities in the proper order. It is the discipline of keeping your eye on the ball, whether the ball is for golf or tennis, basketball or football. In our text, Jesus is telling us that he must be our first love in our life. He goes on to discuss the love of the members of family and how we are to put all of this in perspective. Jesus is giving us a hard saying when he says that he must come first in our life. Anita Bryant, a few years ago, whose annual income from commercials and concerts was over $500,000, wrote an article and said, my priorities are God, husband, children, family, and my country. And I think I would die in that order for them. That is the kind of relationship that Jesus would approve of you and I walking on the crossroads of life. The cross means discipline by putting lesser things in their prospective place. The matter of putting Christ above family is a matter of discipline. Several preachers, one by the name of Sangster, another Marshall, and another by Bunyan, all faced these same things. They were preachers many years ago, and they all three ended up in jail for preaching the word of Christ. But they thought to themselves, I must venture with all that I have for Jesus Christ. It could happen to any one of us. I read a story about a young lady who had grown up in the church, but she never really felt she understood until she became a mature Christian, until she became serious about her prayer life and following Christ. She said, my life changed. But she said the worst part was I got some resistance at home. She said my parents called me a fanatic. They said it's all right for you to go to church every Sunday, but anything beyond that is a little too much. By word and example, her parents were discouraging her from Christian discipleship. When a member of our family or friends puts Christ first in their life, there is some conflict that begins. The Christians want to say grace before a meal, and others laugh at them. Or maybe they don't care for the kind of language. The discipline in our life is the crossroad, maintaining Christ first in our life, no matter whatever else happens. Another one of our roads is the road of hardship. The crossroad of life can be hard, and it is talking about hardship in our life. Jesus said, he who does not take up his cross. The Christian way of life is the cross way. If it is the cross that you and I take up, we are looking at hardships in our life. The cross that Jesus Christ took up was rough, and it was a tough one. It meant nails. It meant a spear. The cross gave him loneliness. He was forsaken, and agony and pain. And finally, the cross shed his blood for you and I. But who wants to take the road of life when it's hard? A couple of weeks ago when I was in Rice Lake, I saw a bumper sticker on a car. It was ahead of me, and it says, easy does it. And you know what? A lot of times, that's what we do in life. Easy does it. It makes life a little bit easier for us. I also saw something on the internet the other day with all this corona stuff. It was a big full screen thing. And it was by some bank, and I can't even remember what it was. But the title caught me because it says, Paying Without Pain. It described a new way of paying your bills. You can get your cell phone out and you can put the bank app on it and you can take a picture of your check. It'll be deposited. You don't even have to take the check to the bank. You can do it all online. And then you can set up all of your bills so that they automatically come out. They said you can pay without pain. Not so sure that's true. But there is the pain of the cross from Jesus Christ. You know, we as Americans are called in our life to voluntarily assume hardships. And look at what has gone on the past 13, 14, 15 weeks with the virus. And how I was talking to a friend last night and I said, you know, I never even dreamed anything like this would ever happen. And now it's behind us, hopefully. But are we going to be completely different now from this? Just like a few years ago when there was the energy crisis. You know, we had to go from 65 down to 55. We were told to turn our thermostats down to 68 or possibly 65. And then there was something called recycling. Instead of throwing your cans and paper and bottles out the window, recycle them. I believe in our life, each and every day is a change. Some of them we consider a hardship. Some we consider progress. And others we think are an inconvenience in life. But if you and I endure the hardships for Jesus Christ, it is because we have taken up our cross to follow Him. You know, when we think about hardships, if we look at St. Paul, he had beatings, stonings, he was in a shipwreck, he was cold, he was hungry, he was attacked by robbers. Have any of us had any of that happen to us just recently? Sometimes in life we just become weak and soft because life has been so easy for us. Just before the coronavirus hit, we had Ash Wednesday. And the church that I had attended in Kansas City, I thought was really something cute they were doing. They were going to have a fast-a-thon. Now, the youth of the church were going to do it, and it would be for 15 hours on Ash Wednesday. And you could pick a youth to fast for you, and then you paid them a certain amount for each hour they fasted. Well, it was really a success, and the proceeds all went to feed the hungry. They said it was such a popular project because we would rather pay someone else to fast for us than to fast ourselves. Kind of like tithing at times, isn't it? Getting up on Sunday morning to go to worship, or maybe we'll just stay home. If you and I do not participate in the hardships of the cross, then you and I will not find eternity. We grow, I believe, under the challenges of difficulty. President Harry Truman had a sign on his desk when he was president that said, "Bring me only bad news, because good news makes me weak." On a daily basis, you and I find many challenges. I know that a lot of times I have prayed to God and said, these hardships and trials and tribulations, They're all supposed to make us stronger. Well, I'm strong enough. Don't send any more. I don't need any more. And I bet all of you are the same way. You're strong enough in life. Through suffering, pain, and hardship, you and I become better people. Billy Graham said, "May God deny you peace, but may he always give you glory." Going with Jesus on the crossroad involves hardships. And beyond the cross is where the glory of the crown of everlasting life will be given. And then there's another road called sacrifice. You know, this road of sacrifice, he who does not lose his life for my sake will not find it. You know, although we say that a lot of the dirty words are only 4 letters, when we talk about sacrifice, that's a dirty word. And when we talk about hardship, it's also not a very nice word. They say that the great business of life is 4 things. It is to be, to do without, and to depart. Of the 4 center factions of life, to do without is probably the most difficult, the one that we have never really learned how to handle. I read about a gentleman who was going into World War II, and he said, "I don't mind going to war and becoming a hero. I just don't want to be hurt." The same reaction happens in life. A lot of times in our circumstances. I read about a missionary who was going to be going overseas. And he said, "I have always wanted to be a returning missionary. And now that it's time to leave, I'm not so sure I want to go. I just want to be a returning one." When you think about that in life, are you and I that way at times? We'd like to just come up on the other side and not go through all the trials and the tribulations. Are we willing to be a returned missionary? We can get the blessings, but not the hardships of life. How much does an average person really sacrifice for the good of others and for Christ? For some in our life, it is the sacrifice of our income. It is how we spend our money, how we help those in need. I did see a bumper sticker, not on a car, but in my site that I prepare my messages from. And it said, "It may be like the bumper sticker that said, 'If you love Jesus, tithe, anyone can honk.'" There are times in life when sacrifices need to be made. Many men and women have made the ultimate sacrifice so that you and I could be here today. A father lost his life trying to rescue his son who had fallen through the ice. A sheriff in Colorado went out into the canyon to warn the campers of an oncoming flood, and before he finished, he was washed away to death. Sacrifices like these are unusual. Our text this morning talks about following Christ, that you and I have to make sacrifices for our life. The sacrifices are not just once in a lifetime experience, but they are done on a daily basis. The sacrifice of death is the sacrifice that goes on day and day. When you and I die for Christ, we rise to everlasting life. Whatever we do for Christ, can it be called a sacrifice? can all the sacrifices that we feel we do in life, are they always done as a debt that's owed to someone or a debt that's owed to Christ? I teased earlier about, how I pray that, I've had enough, you don't have to give me any more, and I can do without. But to be on the more serious side, I believe that these are called privileges. We have made sacrifices, and when we talk about them, we talk about the great sacrifice that we have done in our life. But yet, it is a privilege to have walked and done these things for Jesus Christ. One thing that we can be sure, there is no progress in this world without a sacrifice somewhere. No business was ever built without the owner sacrificing much hard work. No cause was won without someone giving their all. This church wasn't built without sacrifice from many people. The Bible tells us, without the shedding of blood, there will be no redemption. To gain a crown, there must be a cross. And then there is the road to adventure. Follow me, he said. You must travel this road with me and take up your cross. It is a road of adventure. Jesus' road is one of adventure, because in following him, we never know what is coming and what is going to happen to us. There is an unknown future, and we must take those risks in our life. There are real dangers ahead, but this makes life exciting when we walk with Christ. Because Christ never asks you and I to do anything that he hasn't already done himself. Because we walk after him as he leads the way. So our adventures in life they are an adventure that will lead to everlasting life in the end. In 1 Kings, there's a story of Haden. He was a child, and he had to flee because David's army was going to kill all the males. He went to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh took him in. He gave him a home. He gave him food. When he grew up, he gave him his wife's sister for a bride. When Hadad learned that David had died, he wanted to return to his homeland. Pharaoh said, "What have you lacked with me that now you want to return to your homeland?" He said, "Simply, I want to go back home because it is an adventure of liberty that I want to help." When Jesus tells you and I to follow me, are you and I willing to follow him in every aspect, even when the going gets tough on the cross? When Jesus said, "Follow me," he is not just standing behind us, but he is already leading the way. He set the example of discipline, hardship, and sacrifice. He never asks us to do it because he already has done it. Teddy Roosevelt never said to the Rough Riders, "Go." He said, "Come on, boys, let's go together." And that is what Christ has done for you and I. Come on and go with me. It is the crossroad of life, the road that Christ took, the road that you and I as Christians are called to take. It's nice to be on Easy Street, but in the end, you and I want to have a reward of everlasting life. At the end of our gospel reading for today, Jesus said to his disciples that they should not lose their reward. If there is a reward, the only one, then you and I should always keep our eye on that prize. And that prize is in the end. And what is my reward? I serve neither for reward nor thanks, but out of gratitude and love, because I believe that my greatest reward is that I have been permitted to serve. Been permitted to serve with all of you here in Weyerhaeuser. And I hope and pray that you will be permitted to serve and to walk with Jesus Christ each and every day. Amen.